Yeah, well, so much for the outdoor adventures. The weather is not quite yet congenial for me to go out into it and give you some beautiful sceneries, but those days are coming. In the meantime, we continue on with Albert Pike. It was kind of fun to see that deer. That's a fun little extra couple of minutes bonus. On page 16, I really like how Pike tied in the Hebrew Yod with the English G, and with the Egyptian Osiris, with the Yod in the center, and the Kabbalah as the divine energy manifested as light, creating the universe, and the circle within the point. I mean, he is just throwing so much at us in way of comparison. One of the values, one of the supreme powers of morals and dogma that has scarcely been matched even in our day, and it's been well over 130 years since this baby's been in print, is the astonishing comparative analysis that Pike does in this Morals and Dogma. It is breathtaking. There's very few people who have done this even up to our day. A few have. But Pike, absolutely a leader in this process. One of the disadvantages is when critics go to find something that Pike said, they'll just open him almost as if it were at random and start reading, and they'll say, "See, Masons are idolaters. This is what they believe." Pike throws out so much information from other religious traditions and ideas and themes that sometimes it takes you to go back 15 or 20 pages to see that he is describing the ancient Phoenician or the ancient Babylonian. It's not what Freemasons believe. He is showing a comparison contrast, because by proving contraries, truth is made manifest. And sometimes there are real powerful connections. Other times he's using that as a contrast so that we don't mistake what Freemasonry teaches. I have found very few critics who are willing to do the necessary homework to comprehend Albert Pike. I hope we Freemasons will do better. That's the intent of these videos, to help you get your bearings. Pike here brings in an enormous amount of tradition that has some huge textual backgrounds that's probably pretty necessary to comprehend, and that's years of study, which Pike did before he wrote this. So we've got our homework cut out for us, but it is worth every minute, I promise. This is the most astonishing, enlightening materials that give you value in your soul for yourself so that you can go out and innervate the world. Share the goodness, the meaning of life, the impact of goodness and love and mercy and justice. It's sensational. I have yet to find very many books that are as good as this. So anyway, the jewels. On page 16, the jewels of the lodge are said to be 6 in number. And they're called movable, 3 movable, 3 immovable, the square, the level, and the plumb. And then, of course, the ashlar, the rough ashlar, the perfect ashlar, the cubical stone. Some rituals have the double cube, and the tracing board or the trestle board. So these are various internal mechanisms, as it were, symbols to get us to acquire the broadness, the vastness, the meaning, the philosophy of Freemasonry. We're not stuck with just 1 or 2 tools. We have myriads and myriads at our disposal to help us comprehend mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, psychologically, graphically, and practically, mathematically, alphabetically, philosophically. I mean, it all comes together as long as we use these symbols for the betterment of ourselves and society. That is the whole intent of having the symbolisms of the ancient stonemakers. We use their working tools from their profession as a basis to better ourselves and thus help others better themselves. I mean, it's a nifty little arrangement as far as I'm concerned. It's got a practical aspect and yet a spiritual aspect. We can do this day by day. It is possible. You can eat an elephant one day at a time. Absolutely. One bite at a time. So, and then he talks about a few of the York-Rite, the point within the circle, the York-Rite presentation of the brother represents the point within the circle, and so on and so forth, the boundary line of his conduct, and that's good practical advice. And he says, this is not to interpret the symbols of Masonry, though. It is said by some, with the nearer approach to interpretation, that the point within the circle represents God in the center of the universe. And the Kabbalah, incidentally, says it began with the point, then it spread out, but there is a cube of space. And so this ties us back in with the cube as well as the circle. It's not a contradiction. These are symbolisms trying to get us to comprehend the power, the majesty of infinity and eternity. And sometimes that's just not that easy. We need symbols to help us acquire that depth of comprehension. And this isn't to be had in a quick 10-minute sit-down reading of Albert Pike or of anything in Freemasonry. No, it's a process. It's a lifetime process and goal. We ascend the ladder. You don't begin at the top of the ladder. No, you take it one rung at a time. Does that make sense? I think it's beautiful how it's laid out here. So anyway, it's a common Egyptian sign for the sun as well as Osiris, as he says, and is still used as the astronomical sign of the sun. In the Kabbalah, the point is Yod, the creative energy of God, irradiated with light. The circular space, which God, the universal light, left vacant, wherein to create the worlds by withdrawing his substance of light back on all sides from one point. The Kabbalistic idea here is very interesting. This is called the Zimzum, the contraction of God, where God fills all the immensity of space. Well, in order for there to be some place where he could create, he began at a point and withdrew from that area. And then he created in that blank spot. It's a very interesting concept from the Jewish Kabbalah. That's what Pike is describing on page 16 here. And our brethren add that this circle is bordered by two perpendicular parallel lines representing John the Baptist and John the Evangelist, and upon the top rest the Holy Scriptures. And he doesn't necessarily agree with this. I think the symbolism does have its purpose, and it's beautifully understood within the lodge and practiced. It's a nice touch, in my opinion, but it's not the end-all, be-all. It doesn't just... That's the power and beauty of symbolism, isn't it? Symbols can mean more than just one item at one time. They can acquire multitudinous meanings. Some of them even contradict themselves. The Egyptians are huge on this. When they pack in as many symbolisms as they can in those little round cushions called hypocephali that they put under the heads of the mummies, they have all kinds of cosmic diagrams and charts of the heavens, of earth, of practicalities in earth life, and so on and so forth. There's parallels to the shield of Achilles in the Iliad with these Egyptian hypocephali. Multitudinous meanings. I'll do some videos on that too. There's been some fantastic new studies on that come out within the last just decade. That's stunningly interesting. So in going around this circle, they say, we necessarily touch upon these two lines as well as upon the Holy Scriptures, and we keep ourselves circumscribed within those limits, and we cannot materially err. And that's basically the Freemasonic exposition of this. And Pike on page 17 says, I'm not going to comment on it, he said, there's other interpretations. He didn't particularly like that interpretation. Now remember, in the preface to Pike's Morals and Dogma, he said, you are free to accept or reject anything in this book. This is not the final say-so. Freemasons are not bound to have to believe everything in Pike's Morals and Dogma in order to be good Freemasons. No such book holds that office, any more than any singular Freemason can describe Freemasonry that all other Masons must adhere to. It's a very open system here. Awesome. Absolutely awesome.